Let's Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to discuss very important topic, that is the hypertensive disorder of the pregnancy. Hypertensive disorder of the pregnancy is the second common cause of maternal mortality after the hemorrhage. So you must know about the hypertension, how we define the hypertension in the pregnancy. There is a difference between the hypertension outside the pregnancy and inside the pregnancy. In the pregnancy. So definition of the hypertension, the patient may be labeled to be hypertensive when her diastolic blood pressure is 110 or more, single reading only, or the two consecutive measurement of the blood pressure more than 90 millimeter of the mercury 4 hours apart. That is known as the hypertension. What do you mean by the proteinuria? This is also different in the pregnancy and outside the pregnancy. In the pregnancy, the definition of the proteinuria is 124 hours urine collection with a total protein excretion is more than 300 milligram or equal to the 300 milligram. Or you have the two random clean cage or catheter urine specimen with +2, which is equal to the 1 gram albumin per liter. Or you can have on the reagent strip that is shows the 1+ that indicate 0.3 gram albumin per liter if the specific gravity is less than 1030. So this is the proteinuria and that was the hypertension. Now the hypertensive disorder, which are broadly divided into the pregnancy into the PIH, pregnancy induced hypertension, preeclampsia, eclampsia. So these are the hypertensive disorder which are there. What is the PIH? PIH is the hypertension and the proteinuria that is developed after 20 weeks of the pregnancy, during the labor or the puerperal in a previously normotensive non-proteinuric females. This is subdivided into the PIH without proteinuria, pregnancy-induced proteinuria without hypertension, pregnancy-induced proteinuria means and hypertension means preeclampsia. This is clear. That is the hypertensive disorder may be divided into the only hypertension. There is a no proteinuria. There is a proteinuria but no hypertension. But when there is a proteinuria and the hypertension, then it is known as the preeclampsia. But all these things should be occur after the 20 weeks of the pregnancy. The chronic hypertension and chronic renal diseases, that is the hypertension and the proteinuria in the pregnancy in a woman with a chronic hypertension or the chronic renal disease diagnosed either before the pregnancy or prior to the 20 weeks of the pregnancy, or it is persisting after the pregnancy. This is again divided into the chronic hypertension without proteinuria, chronic renal diseases, that is the proteinuria and the hypertension, chronic hypertensive disease with superimposed preeclampsia. Means the patient was already known to be the hypertensive and now in the pregnancy she develops a proteinuria, and then it's labeled as the chronic hypertension superimposed by the preeclampsia. Then there is a group of hypertension. This is known as the unclassified hypertension or the unclassified proteinuria. Means the proteinuria or a hypertension found either at a first visit after the 20 weeks of the pregnancy in a woman without known chronic hypertension or the renal diseases, or during the pregnancy, labor or the puerperal where the information is insufficient to permit the classification. We cannot say classify properly. Then this is again a term is of eclampsia. This is also a part of the hypertensive disorders. It's a classification of the in which the patient, along with the sign and the symptoms of the pregnancy, she developed the conversions or the fits in the pregnancy, which is not attributable to the other causes such as the epilepsy, meningitis, subarachnoid hemorrhages, CNS tumors, or any electrolyte abnormalities. It means you have to exclude all the other causes of the fits, and along with the sign and the symptoms of the preeclampsia, if the patient after the 20 weeks of the gestation, if the patient develop the fits, then you label it eclampsia. Otherwise, it has been said that all the patient who come in the all the pregnant patient, if she come in the with a fits, then you label it as a eclampsia. Otherwise, it is excluded. So usually, but not always, it is preceded by the sign and the symptoms of the preeclampsia. Now the important is preeclampsia and the eclampsia. What is the incidence? Overall incidence, the hypertensive disorders का जो overall incidence है, that is the 5 to 10% है. इसमें 3 to 4% preeclampsia है, and the 1 into 2000 pregnancies में eclampsia होता है. And once the patient is suffering from the preeclampsia or the eclampsia, then there is a 20% chance of the patient may have again in the next pregnancy. So the recurrence risk is the 20%. What is the etiology? Actually, there is a definite etiology is not known. How this preeclampsia and eclampsia occur? It is a multi-systemic disorder or the disease of the theories. There is the actual what happened that is actually is a disorder of the placentation. What happened in the placentation at the time of implantation? That initially there is a invasion of the trophoblast to the big spiral vessels, and they convert that vessels into the high conduit vessels, high capacitance vessels. So this type of the invasion will not occur in the preeclampsia and the eclampsia. So that's why these vessels becomes the responsive to they becomes a narrow, they becomes a responsive to the vasoactive substances, and they will be causes the placental insufficiency. Or there may be the defective trophoblastic invasion of the maternal spiral arteries. There may be the generalized that will lead to the generalized vasoconstrictive stage, and there may be the endothelial dysfunction. Some may say it is an immunological abnormalities. That is the preeclampsia may develop because of the certain immunological abnormalities. Now, this is the flow chart which show that what is the pathophysiology of the preeclampsia. The preeclampsia is, I said that it is a disease of the vascular, that is the spiral arteries, which has not been converted into the high capacitance conduit because of the improper trophoblastic invasion. So this will lead to the decreased placental perfusion. Again, there may be the immunogenetic factors, and there may be the triglycerides and free acids. All these will causes a decreased placental perfusion, which lead to the release of certain STMP, cytokinase, and lipid peroxide. Now, these cytokinase like interleukin-6, tumor necrotic factor alpha, they causes the oxidative stresses. Now, this oxidative stresses will lead to the endothelial dysfunction, and this lead to the endothelial dysfunction, this lead to the neutrophilic activation, this lead to the platelet activation. And now the end result, as we know that the endothelial is present in all over the body. So in the blood, this will lead to the thrombocytopenia, and that will lead to the coagulopathy. In the vessels, this causes the altered vascular permeability, lead to the peripheral edema as well as the pulmonary edema. In the systematically, this causes the vasoconstriction, so will lead to the hypertension. In the kidneys, there will be again there is a vasoconstriction and ischemia. There will be the hyperuricemia, there may be the proteinuria, and there may be the renal failure. In the liver, there may be the abnormal liver function, or there may be the subcapsular hemorrhage. In the brain, this causes the seizures, this causes the cortical blindness, this causes the retinal detachment and the hemorrhage. In the placenta, this will lead to the fetal growth retardation, fetal hypoxemia, and the abruptio placenta. So this is the flow chart to understand what is the pathophysiology and how these pathophysiologically this preeclampsia will affect on all the system. So this is the multi-system disorders. What are the risk factors? The risk factor of the preeclampsia and eclampsia. This is a very important. You must remember this risk factor because the management will depend upon this risk factor as well. The risk factor are the extreme of the age. The hypertension, preeclampsia and eclampsia are more commonly seen in the patient who are the extreme of the age. That is the very young primary gravida, less than 20 years of the age, or the very overage primary gravida, like more than 35 years of the first pregnancy, because it is considered first pregnancy is considered as a test for the female. So as the fetus is the allograft, it is a maternal immunological reaction to how it behaves, the mother behaves. If she is not, she is rejecting that allograft, there may be the abortion in the first trimester, there may be the preeclampsia in the second trimester, or there may be the formation of the herediform mole or the molar pregnancy. This is a more common in the multiple pregnancy. This is a more common in the herediform. And one thing is remember that in the herediform mole, as we say that the definition of the preeclampsia is the rise of the blood pressure and the proteinuria, which occur after the 20 weeks of the gestation. But in the herediform mole, it occurs prior to the 20 weeks. So the preeclampsia is also common in the patient who have the family history, either her mother or the sister or the first sibling has been suffered from the similar type of the disorder. Any patient who have the pre-existing hypertension, pre-existing renal diseases or the diabetes mellitus, particularly the diabetes mellitus for a longer period of the time, that will lead to the vasculopathy and that will lead to the hypertension and the preeclampsia. Maternal obesity is also one of the contributor for the development of this preeclampsia and eclampsia. Previous severe early onset of the preeclampsia, as we discussed early in the incidence, that if the patient once suffer from the preeclampsia, then there will be the chances of 20% chance of the recurrence. So the previous history of the preeclampsia and the cigarette smoking appear to the reduced risk. How it causes, the actual cause is not known. Now, what is the clinical manifestation of the preeclampsia and eclampsia? Clinically, patient may be asymptomatic. She may be the accidentally diagnosed. She came into the antenatal period to you, and when you have checked the blood pressure, her blood pressure will be raised, and that is the accident. She has no symptoms, or the patient may be the variable. Symptoms may be very variable. She may present with amelias, fatigue, vomiting, nausea, headache, real disturbance, hyperreflexia, epigastric pain, facial edema, or some patient may be, these are the symptoms of the severe preeclampsia. So the patient may present either with a no symptom, asymptomatically. She is came into the antenatal clinic for the routine checkup, and you have examined her and checked her blood pressure, and you found that her blood pressure is raised. Or the patient with a full balloon picture of the severe preeclampsia, that is the blurring of the VN, there is a headache, there is a nausea, vomiting, general melias, there may be the hyperreflexia or epigastric pain and the facial edema, or the generalized, and sometimes there may be generalized edema as well. Maternal, what is the maternal system which are involved, and the symptoms may be contribute to this, the system which is involved, like renal system, the renal dysfunction. There may be oligouria, there may be the proteinuria, there may be the hyperuricemia, liver dysfunction. That will lead to the, there may be the, because of the liver disorders, the liver dysfunction, Either there may be the subcapsular hemorrhage, and the stretching of that capsule will lead to the severe type of the epigastric pain. Or there, if you're going to perform a liver function test, the liver function test will be altered. There may be the cardiovascular dysfunction, the patient's blood pressure may be raised, or there may be the ischemia. There is a hematological dysfunction, like the patient may have the neutrophil activation and the platelet will be decreased. And there may be the neurological dysfunction, that is the patient may have the hyperreflexia, or the patient may have the full blown picture of the convergence and the fits. By the impact of this preeclampsia on the fetus is either there may be intrauterine growth retardation, which is quite common. This is due to the, as we say, that the spiral arteries are not well developed, and there may be the placental insufficiency. So there may be the hypoxia, and that hypoxia will lead to the intrauterine growth retardation, or there may be if the hypoxia is a severe one, that will lead to the intrauterine death. Or sometime there may be the preterm delivery. This preterm delivery could be iatrogenic, or it could be the spontaneous. Iatrogenic means the hypertensive disorder, particularly the preeclampsia and the eclampsia, is one of the important cause of the iatrogenic preterm delivery, because the only treatment of the preeclampsia and the eclampsia is to deliver the patient. To deliver the patient, once the patient gets rid of this fetus, get rid of that placenta, then her symptoms will be improved, her blood pressure will be subsided. So the preterm delivery is one of the important cause of iatrogenic preterm deliveries. Preeclampsia is one of the important cause of the iatrogenic preterm deliveries. Now, management. How will you manage the patient? It's very important to must take the detailed history. In detailed history, it is very important whether it is a primigravida, it's a multigravida, it's a conception was a spontaneous, or it is a induced, for how long she has been infertile, whether she's a booked or non-booked, she have been seen by any medical personnel or not, or is there any history of the excessive vomiting, excessive nausea, headache, blurring of the vision, epigastric pain, generalized edema, the localized edema. So all these things must be asked during the history, and no doubt it's a very important if the patient is known to be the hypertensive, she's on the medication or not, for how long she has been on the antihypertensive drugs, is there any history of the diabetes mellitus, is there any history, family history of the similar type of the disorder like preeclampsia in the mother or the sister, or her mother or the father or her other first degree relative are suffering from the hypertension. So this is very important. Then you must have the general clinical examination. A thorough clinical examination must be taken. From the look, you can assist the patient whether the patient is having the generalized edema or the facial edema, and what is the reflexes of the patient. You must take the blood pressure measurement in the particularly in the at the angle of the 45 degree. You have the ask the patient to have the rest for at least 20 minutes, and then after the 20 minutes you check the blood pressure of the patient. And it's a very important to check the blood pressure. If the raised blood pressure, it must be taken at least twice. So it should be taken in both the arms. It's not that you have to, patient is coming from the outside and you have immediately check the blood pressure. So patient should have the rest for at least 20 minutes, check the blood pressure. And what is the method of taking the blood pressure? That is very important. Patient must have the rest, she must have in the proper position, and you apply the cuff 2 to 3 centimeter above the antecubital fossa, and the tubing should be on the medial side, and you must take first the systolic by the palpatory method and then by the auscultative. So this is very important to check the blood pressure. You know that how to check the blood pressure. So, and apart from the checking the blood pressure, you check for the edema, particularly on the dependent part, that is on the medial malleolus and on the sacrum. And then you have to check the cardiovascular examination, exclude other causes of the general physical examination. You must exclude the other causes of the most probable other causes of the hypertension, like Cushing's syndrome and pheochromocytoma. You can assess by the clinical examination. Then you must do the full obstetrical examination. The full obstetrical examination means you Pollard's maneuvers. You have the fundal height, the lateral palpation, the pelvic palpation. You assess the symphytofundal height and see whether it is corresponding to the gestational age or not. You assess the lie of the fetus, assess the amount of the liquor amni clinically by ballotting with the two hands. By ballotting the baby in the liquor, the baby is ballotable easily. That means the liquor is adequate. You must assess the presenting part. So this is a part of the examination, as well as if the patient is at the term, you will decide for the mode of the delivery as well. And then no doubt you must listen the fetal heart sounds. Then the cardiovascular examination, that includes again the blood pressure, the auscultation of the four cardiac areas, and the neurological examination, the superficial and the deep reflexes, and the GCS of the patient. So this is all about the history and the clinical examination. Now the investigation, which is an important investigation, certain investigation which are required for the antenatal period, you must know the routine investigation, that is the blood group Rh typing, the complete blood count, including the hemoglobin platelet counts. And in this, we not only do the full blood count for the hemoglobin and the platelet, but must have the clotting studies, coagulation studies. Urea and electrolytes and uric acid to assess the renal function, the liver function test, liver enzymes, and for the proteinuria, you must have the 24 hours urine collection. Nowadays, it is a creatinine protein ratio, which is a spot diagnosis. This is 24 hours urine collection is somewhat difficult. So the creatinine protein ratio is you can do the creatinine, which is a very rapid assessment of the total protein in the urine. Then ultrasound examination, no doubt the ultrasound, real-time ultrasound examination to assess the gestational age, number of the pregnancy, amount of the liquor amni, presentation of the fetus, and the placental localization, and the biophysical profile. The biophysical profile you can do by the real-time ultrasound examination, and then you must have if particularly the patient has the preeclampsia or the chronic hypertension, you must have the Doppler studies for the assessing the systolic and diastolic blood flow. Then you assess the fetal cardiotocography, particularly fetal cardiotocography is important after 30 to 34 weeks of the gestation, not prior to this. This will assess the fetal well-being. Now the management of the preeclampsia. The only management of the preeclampsia is the delivery. That is, I already told you that once the patient gets rid of that fetus, patient get rid of that, then there will be the this symptoms will be subsided. The rest of management is the management or the treatment of the symptoms for which patient come to you. The management again depend upon the duration of the gestation, the severity of the disease, the maternal and the fetal condition. What is the maternal condition? How severe is the hypertension? So there is a danger to the mother, that there may be the chances of the renal failure, there may be the chances of the cerebrovascular accident, there may be the chances of this eclampsia, there may be the chances of the fetal IUD. So intrauterine fetal death or a fetal distress. So you may decide upon the gestational age, and sometimes we do not look for the gestational age. We just see the severity of the condition maternal and decide the mode of the delivery and the time of the delivery according to the severity of the disease, maternal and the fetal condition, irrespective of the gestational age. The management include the hospital admission, close monitoring of the vital signs, antihypertensive medication, magnesium sulfate, and the delivery. These are the 4 outlines which are important. You must know that all the patients with a severe hypertension should be hospitalized and where the vital signs should be monitored. The antihypertensive medication should be Antihypertensive medication should be started if needed. Magnesium sulfate should be given to control the fits and prevent the further fits and once there is a delivery. Now this is the overall management of this is a flow chart for the management of the hypertensive disorders. Once the patient come to you in the outpatient department, अगर आपके पास पेशेंट कोई ओपीडी में आ रही है and her blood pressure is more than 90 equal to or more than 90 millimeter of the mercury, तो जैसे मैंने बताया आपको, must have the rest, confirm on repeat testing in the antenatal, वहीं पे बिठा के 20 minutes के बाद आप उसका फिर से blood pressure देखें या 30 minutes के बाद. So if the persistently her blood pressure is more than 90 millimeter of the mercury, she should be kept in the daycare unit. Now in the daycare unit, ये actually daycare units जो होते हैं, these are not available to us. However, in the Aga Khan there are the daycare unit, but in our setup there is a no daycare unit. But in the daycare unit, the patient is hospitalized for the 1 day, for the 12 hours or 18 hours. So she should be monitored where. So their blood pressure should be monitored every 30 minutes. The urine analysis, midstream urine analysis. You assess the midstream urine analysis for the proteinuria, and meanwhile you send the her CBC for the platelet count. You assess the urates, you assess the ALTs, liver function test, and you do the ultrasound examination for the fetal size, the fetal well-being, not only the size, the fetal well-being, gross fetal movement, fetal heart sounds, amount of the liquor amnion, placenta localization, and the approximate fetal weight. And the umbilical aortic Doppler are the CTG. So after that, now you have to admit the patient in the daycare unit. Then after you assess that if the blood pressure is on the second reading or the third reading, the blood pressure is less than 90 millimeter of the mercury, and there is a proteinuria less than +2, and there is a no risk factor. Now you memorize the risk factor as we discussed. The patient is either the patient is extreme age, primary gravida, she is less than 18 years old, primary gravida है, या 35 years old, multi gravida है, या फिर उसकी कोई फैमिली हिस्ट्री है, या उसकी कोई प्रीवियस हिस्ट्री है, या एसोसिएटेड डायबिटीज मेलाइटिस है, या ओबीज है, या प्रीवियस हिस्ट्री है, then you have to see the patient once a week. Otherwise, the patient will go into the antenatal clinic for the routine antenatal checkup. But if the patient having along with it, this 90 millimeter of less than 90 millimeter of the mercury and less than 2 proteinuria, but there are the risk factors like the patient is a very young primary gravida, patient is more than 35 years of the age, patient is obese, previous history of the hypertension, family history of the hypertension, history of the chronic hypertension, then you have to see this all these patients once a week. Those patients whose blood pressure is in between the 90 to 99 millimeter of the mercury and the proteinuria is less than 2 plus, and there is a no risk factor as we discussed recently, then you look the patient, ask the patient to come in the once a week. But along with her blood pressure 90 to 99 millimeter of the mercury and the proteinuria less than 2, but she has the risk factor as we discussed, then this patient should be seen twice a week. twice a week, or this patient should be hospitalized. Those patients who require the twice a week assessment, then this is better to hospitalize these patients. The patient whose blood pressure is between the 100 to 109 millimeter of the mercury, still her proteinuria is less than 2 and there is a no risk factor, again these patients should be seen twice a week in the antenatal clinics. But if the along with this blood pressure that is 100 to 109 millimeter of the mercury and there is a proteinuria that is less than 2 plus 2 and she has a risk factor, they should be hospitalized. All these patients should be done. All the patients whose blood pressure is 110 millimeter of the mercury or more than 110 millimeter of the mercury, proteinuria more than 2 plus, or the patient have the symptom of the severe preeclampsia as we discussed, that is she has a severe headache, she has the blurring of the VN, she has the epigastric pain, she has the hyperreflexia, or there is an altered consciousness, or the patient have fits at any time, all these patients require the hospitalization. And in the hospitalization for the fetal-maternal monitoring and control of the blood pressure and the decision for the termination of the pregnancy, mode and the time of the delivery. That is the mode and time of the delivery. Now, in the daycare follow-up, what you have to see that you have to see for the blood pressure when the patient come to you for the follow-up, either after the 1 week or in the twice a week. So what have to you see for? That is, you look for the blood pressure, you check the blood pressure of the patient. As I told you that how you to take the blood pressure, you must do the urine analysis for the protein, that is by the clin-Kach urine, that is midstream urine, and you do the urates, platelet count, ALT, ultrasound examination, umbilical artery Doppler, or the real-time ultrasound. If you have the facilities of the umbilical artery in the outpatient department, you do the Doppler ultrasound, but it's not necessary to do the ultrasound every week, Doppler ultrasound every week. You can do after the 15 days and the CTG. No doubt the CTG is required. Ultrasound, real-time ultrasound, you assess the size, fetal size, the amniotic fluid volume, this should be performed every 2 weeks. Now, what are the indications for the delivery in the preeclampsia? Otherwise, if the patient is going to smoothly, her blood pressure is controlled and she has no symptom, her fetal growth is normal, she is normal, you can continue the pregnancy up to the term. That is up to the 37, 38 weeks of the gestation. But there are the certain conditions in which you have to terminate the pregnancy prior to the term. And these conditions are if the patient is a severe and uncontrolled hypertension. That is, her blood pressure is more than 160 and diastolic more than 110 millimeter of the mercury. Hemolysis with thrombocytopenia and elevated liver enzymes. Progressive symptoms like patient complaining of headache, visual disturbance, epigastric pain. This also indicates that the patient is in the state of the severe preeclampsia. Or the patient may present with a pulmonary edema, or the patient may be renal compromise, means urates and the uric acid and the creatinine level is raised, or patient may be complaining of oliguria. Oliguria means when the urine output is less than 300 ml in 24 hours. You have to admit the patient and measure the urine output. Or the patient may present with a fits or eclampsia, or there is a fetal distress is diagnosed by the biophysical profile or fetal heart rate monitoring on the CTG, or you have performed the biophysical profile and you see that the fetus is compromised. So you have to terminate pregnancy because we have to rescue that baby in the in utero environment, because the in utero environment is not suitable for that baby at that moment. So you have to terminate the pregnancy. What are the antihypertensive drugs which are given during the pregnancy, which are safe for the mother and as well as for the baby? If the patient comes to the severe hypertension, so the acute treatment is by giving the IV bolus. Hydralazine 5 milligram IV bolus. It should be repeated at the interval of the 20 to 30 minutes. The second choice is the nifedipine. Nifedipine 10 milligram orally, repeated an interval after 30 minutes. Sodium nitroprusside 0.25 microgram per kilogram per minute IV infusion, increasing to the 0.25 milligram per kilogram per minute every 5 minutes. Nitroglycerin 10 microgram per minute IV infusion, doubling the dose every 5 minutes. So this is the acute treatment when the patient is having the severe hypertension and you have to rapidly correct her blood pressure, otherwise there may be the chances of the multi-organ failure. Once the blood pressure is controlled, the long-term treatment is required. If the patient may come with a moderate or the mild hypertension, then you can start with a methyl dopa, that is a 1 gram loading dose, then 1 to 2 gram per day in 3 divided doses. This may be increased maximally up to the 3 gram per day. One can give up to the 3 gram per day. Then the second choice, why the methyl dopa, we usually use the methyl dopa as compared to the other drugs because this is a, however, it is not a good drug for the hypertension in the pregnancy, but this is a time-tested drug. It is available to the everywhere. That's why this is usually given. And this has the least fetal effect as compared to the other drugs. Now the labetalol, this is a beta blocker, and it's given into the 300 milligram 3 divided doses. One can give up to the 1200 milligram per day. Nifedipine, this is a calcium channel blocker. So started with the 40 milligram per day in 2 divided doses, and it is increased up to the 120 milligram per day. Hydralazine, the tablet hydralazine 100 milligram per day. This is the vasodilator and it causes the severe headache. So it is given into the 4 divided doses, increasing up to the 300 milligram, depending upon the severity of the hypertension. You can titrate the dose according to the hypertension, according to the raised blood pressure. What is the management goal? As our management goal is the prevention of conversions, so patient may, and prevention of the complication. Convergence is also one of the complication of the hypertensive disorder. So other complication like the cardiovascular accidents, pulmonary edema, renal failure, abruptio placentae, intrauterine fetal death, and deliver a surviving child with a minimum trauma to the mother. एम ये होना चाहिए आपका कि आप डिलीवर भी करवाएं हेल्दी बेबी विद अ हेल्दी मदर. Now, eclampsia, agar eclampsia is a condition in which along with the sign and the symptoms of the pre-eclampsia patient have the fits or the conversions. And whenever the patient come to you in the antenatal period with a fits, always consider the eclampsia, otherwise it is excluded. या तो पेशेंट को पता हो, she knows about it, that she is a known case of the epilepsy, she has a known case of the brain tumor, or she has a history of any trauma, or the history of any other problem, electrolyte imbalance, known, she have give the history, then we can consider for that. Otherwise, if the patient comes with a convergence, you consider it as consider and treat it as an eclampsia. So once the patient come to you with the eclampsia, the first thing which is important is that the call for help. This is the obstetrical emergency. One of the obstetrical emergency, and all the obstetrical emergency cannot be managed by a single person. All the obstetrical emergency is a management is by the teamwork, and that team includes the senior obstetrician, the RMOs, the house officers, the trained nurses, the hematologist, the anesthetist, the neonatologist, and the the midwives, the other personnel which require the data. So call for help. You call for help. The helping personnel. That is your midwife, your RMOs, your house officer, the hematologist, neonatologist, anesthetist. What the hematologist do? The function of the hematologist is to immediately give the certain investigation to assess the hemoglobin percentage, CBC, like CBC, you assess the hemoglobin percentage, the platelet count, the coagulation studies, and if you need it, the arrangement and cross matching the blood. But the anesthetist must know the condition of the patient. So if any time she needs any surgical procedure, he or she will decide for the type of which type of the anesthesia patient can be given. The neonatologist, you have to hand over the baby to the neonatologist, so the neonatologist will be required. The additional personnel which you needed at that is the patient. You cannot control separately or independently to the patient who is fitting, because she is the fitting, she may be fall down. So one can be support you, that one person can maintain the IV line, other can give the oxygen, the mouth gauge, so tongue fall will be prevented, that otherwise there will be the tongue fall and the patient may be died immediately. So immediately you, the first fit which is occur is not be, it's a self limiting. The first will be controlled itself. Our aim is to prevent the further fit. So general Mayer, we take the general Mayer that we give the oxygen. We nurse the patient into the upright semi-prone position. Immediately shift the patient in the high dependent areas where the facilities for the intubation, where the facilities for the monitoring are available. Oxygen, pulse oximetry, and the intubation facilities for the intubation are the ventilators is available. We it's not necessary you abolish the first fit by the dialysis, not necessary. The first fit will be subside itself. Our aim is to control the and prevent the further fit with the magnesium sulfate. The magnesium sulfate is a magic drug, and it will control and prevent this. This is a drug when it is introduced, reduce the maternal. You cannot imagine how much it will reduce the maternal mortality. So the loading dose of magnesium sulfate is the 4 gram IV, which is given into the 20 ml of the 20% normal saline and or dextrose water in 4 to 5 minutes, followed by the 10 gram 20 ml in the 50% solution, in intramuscularly 5 gram in the each butter, alternate butter. Immediate dose hoga, that is 15 grams hoga, that is the 5 grams in the loading IV and the 5 gram in each butter. So the 15 grams is the loading. Then you have to give the 5 grams at the alternate butter after every 4 hours. After every 4 hours, and you can repeat the dose if the patient is persistently fitting. Then the 2 gram repeated IV infusion can be given. Now, while you are giving to the magnesium sulfate, it is a very important that must fulfill the criteria for giving the magnesium sulfate. That is the patient should be, you must have the facility for the intubation. Her urine output should be more than 300 ml per 24 hours. And there may be the reflexes should be normal. The breathing should be normal, reflexes should be normal. The urine output should be more than 300 ml. Then you can assess if this is the 300 ml means when you are not observing for the 24. The best way is that you can give the catheterize the patient and assist at least 30 ml per hour. At least 30 ml per hour urine output is enough. So at least. Otherwise, the normal healthy kidney excrete 100 ml per hour. But if the patient is compromised, her urine output should be 30 ml, at least 30 ml per hour. So while prior to giving the magnesium sulfate, you must assess the patient's breathing is normal, she is not in the pulmonary edema, and her reflexes are normal, both the superficial and because there is a toxicity of the magnesium sulfate. The first sign of the toxicity is this speech, slurring of the speech, and then reflexes losses, and then respiratory arrest, then the cardiac arrest. So and you must have the antidote of in hand. In one hand, you have the antidote of this magnesium sulfate, that is the calcium gluconate. You must have the injection calcium gluconate along with you. You must have the facility for the intubation, where once the patient go into the respiratory arrest, you must immediately intubate the patient, and you must have the this assessment that is there any contraindication for giving the magnesium sulfate. So if the conversion persists after the 15 minutes, you can give the 2 gram 10 ml of in the 20% solution over the 2 minutes duration. Then give the 5 gram 10 ml of 50% intramuscularly every 4 hours in the alternate buttock. This therapy should be continued for the 24 hours after the last fit or after the delivery of the baby, whatever the comes priorly. Either the fits controlled, if the fits controlled, you can continue the treatment for 24 hours. Or if the patient deliver, you can continue for the 24 hours. Then meanwhile, you have to control the blood pressure by the antihypertensive drugs, as we discussed antihypertensive drugs, and you can increase the dose, assess the renal function and the fluid balance. Do not overload the fluid. 80 ml per hour के हिसाब से देना होता है फ्लूइड, जिस भी पेशेंट को अगर फ्लूइड रिक्वायर हो, नॉट मोर देन 80 to 90 ml per hour. Assess the liver function test. We assess the clotting state. Patient must have the normal platelet count and the PT and APTT. And if there is any clotting, the coagulation disturbance, you have to correct it by giving the platelet, by giving the FFP, by giving the cryoprecipitate. Assess the pulmonary function of the patient, assess the fetal health, and deliver when stable. What is the mode of delivery? The mode of the delivery depend upon the maternal status and the fetal viability. Maternal status and the fetal viability and the indication. If, for example, the patient is a stable condition, you give the antihypertensive drugs, you give the magnesium sulfate, the baby is in the cephalic position, and the cervix is a push-up score is a favoring, you can deliver the patient by inserting the prostaglandin by the normal delivery. But the cesarean section should be done if the push-up is poor, or if you see that a patient is you have to induce the labor, but the patient cannot be delivered within 6 to 8 hours. There is no any change. You can do the cesarean. Continuous fetal monitoring. If the CTG showing the repeated deceleration or the fetal compromise, you have to do the cesarean section. Or if there is a other obstetrical indication for the cesarean section, like if the baby is presenting with a breech, or along with there is a placenta previa, or if the patient having the previous cesarean section, or the patient having the CPD, or the patient have a bad obstetrical history. So you have to, if there is a maternal or fetal distress, you can do the cesarean section. Otherwise, you can do the vaginal delivery. The important thing while doing the vaginal delivery or doing the is that this is the second stage should be, if you are going to give the trial for the normal labor, the second stage should be assisted, because patient cannot be fitting, patient cannot push down. You have to assess the second stage of the delivery by the applying the vacuums or applying the forceps. And the active management of third stage of the labor, that is you give the oxytocin for the third stage to prevent the postpartum hemorrhage. Avoid the prolonged labor. कहते हैं कि जो भी मदर हो eclampsia की, she should not have the 2 nights in the labor. She should be delivered within 12 hours. So this is the ideal time to deliver in the 12 hour. This is particularly for the priming gravida. But if she is a multigravida, usually the multigravida deliver within the 4 to 6 hours. What type of the analgesia and anesthesia is required is that depends. Regional anesthesia like the spinal anesthesia is contraindicated if the patient having the clotting abnormalities are the decreased platelet count, because this may causes the hematoma formation. So it's that. But what is that? What about the general anesthesia? The general anesthesia is there is a laryngeal edema, so the intubation will be very difficult. And while the intubation and extubation will lead to the high blood pressure. Now, once the patient is delivered, you have to continue the patient, keep the patient in the high dependency care for the 24 to 48 hours. Continue the anticonvulsant therapy for 24 hours after the last episode or after the delivery. Continue the antihypertensive drugs according to the requirement, because as soon as the baby is delivered, as soon as the placenta has been delivered, the blood pressure will be dropped and there is a decreased requirement for the antihypertensive drugs. Reduce the invasive monitoring when the recovery is seen. Once the patient is recovered, she is awakened. Reduce the intensive. You can shift the patient into the ward and monitor there. Counsel about the recurrence, that is we discussed that there is a 20% recurrence risk of the eclampsia and preeclampsia. Long-term follow-up. All these patients require the long-term follow-up. You ask the patient to come after the 15 days, then after the 6 weeks, and after then monthly for the 6 months at least, to see whether the blood pressure is persist or not. Neurological assessment is very important at each visit, and monitor the blood pressure and the proteinuria, and consider the values if they are abnormal. Thank you very much. खत्म क्यों लेक्चर? Is there any question? Are you hearing me? Participants, students? Is there any question? You can unmute and ask the question, please. Is there any question?
No, ma'am, कोई question नहीं है. Thank you, ma'am.
समझ में आ गया?
Yes, ma'am.
या रेपिड था?
नहीं मैम, सही था.
सही था? समझ में आ गया? कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो अभी still we have the few minutes. Anybody mute herself and can ask the question. Okay? Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.